I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, published by Simon & Schuster Saga Press. And today I'll be reviewing Jim Butcher's second novel in the Dresden Files, titled Full Moon. Book number 2 in the Dresden Files. If you want to see my review of book number 1, I will put a link at the top of the page at the end of the video, along with some other links to some other book reviews I've got. Let's get to Full Moon, second novel in the Dresden Files. I know Jim Butcher. I've sat on some, as a writer, I've sat on some Comic-Con panels with him. I have sold books beside him at book signings on the Comic-Con floors, in the dealers' rooms and such. I know the guy. I think he's a great guy. He helped me in the Superstars of Writing program back in the day when I did that with Kevin J. Anderson and that group of people. So he's a good guy. He's a good author, great series, great writer, and a great guy. Reviewing his Dresden Files books in order, 1 through however many there are, and now we're at book number 2, Full Moon. Now, a lot of people consider this the weakest link in the Dresden Files. They consider it his probably the least favorite book of the Dresden books. I kind of got to disagree. I think it's pretty good. I think it, scratched the itch for me as far as the Dresden Files goes. I mean, yeah, it's a little darker, more horror, more gore. It's taking itself probably a little bit more seriously throughout, rather than the sort of devil-may-care of the last book. For those of you who don't know what Harry Dresden is, he's kind of like a hard-boiled noirish detective from the 1950s, but it's set in modern-day Chicago with like a real X-Files supernatural bent. Like, he's a wizard and he's a detective, but he goes out and he solves crimes and does investigations on the supernatural, kind of like the X-Files. But with a little bit more Harry Potter type magic than the X-Files. And a lot more creatures like vampires and demons and fairies and werewolves, which is what this book is about here, werewolves. The basic plot is, Harry gets pulled into an investigation by Lieutenant Murphy of the police department. That's usually how Harry gets into all his investigations. I do love Lieutenant Murphy. And I love Harry Dresden and Lieutenant Murphy and their interplay between them. There is, however, this does open up with a scene between some police officers, and having worked in law enforcement myself for a lot of years, it's hard for me to set aside my critical eye and read any scene involving cops and just not roll my eyes at the ridiculousness of it. And, unfortunately, Jim Butcher does open up this book with a scene between some cops where the cops are assaulting each other, and there's even like a gun goes off and there's like an attempted murder where one cop tries to kill the other one, and there's no investigation. Like, nobody gives a crap. It's like nobody throughout the whole scene, nobody follows policy or protocol. There's no, in real life, if one cop assaults another cop, he's fired. And if there's an attempted murder between cops, not only are they fired, but they're prosecuted for attempted murder. None of that happens. It's just kind of waved aside as if, whatever, it's just a scene I wanted to write. That's a minor quibble, but I have that quibble with any story that I either watch on TV or read where there's law enforcement involved and the writer's just not getting it quite right, which happens all the time in basically every single thing. So I can give Jim Butcher a pass on that, because he's not the only one that it up royally, because every other author does, with the exception of a few like Michael Connelly's Harry Bosch. He gets it right. The Wire, HBO's The Wire, they get it all right. They understand. Anyway, this opens up with this really weird scene between the police officers that just took me out of the story, and I was like going, what in the hell? But then it's all uphill from there. I forget about that. I'm like, whatever, happens in all the stuff I watch and read. People don't know how to write cops, whatever, let it go. everything uphill from there because I loved this book. You know, it's about werewolves, as I said. It's dark. It's less Marvel. You know, there's a lot less of those kind of Marvel comic booky magical scenes in this one than there was in the first one, which is kind of why this one works for me okay. And I think it's why a lot of people didn't like it because they kind of liked that stuff in the rest of the Harry Dresden books. But this one's more low key, a little bit more of a horror novel, a little bit more gore, a little bit more mystery, a little bit more dark with the mafia and the werewolves and all that. I liked it, you know, and this thing came on the heels of me reading, for my Stephen King reviews, I had just finished reading Cycle of the Werewolf by Stephen King, and then I jumped right into Full Moon by Jim Butcher, and I gotta tell you, Jim Butcher does werewolves a hell of a lot better than Stephen King, and that's high praise because Stephen King is one of my favorite writers of all time. Well, let's be honest, he is my favorite writer of all time. And the fact that I liked this werewolf novel better than Stephen King's werewolf novel says a lot about this novel. I think it's a good novel. I would like more of this in the rest of the series. I kind of liked the tone that he set with this. You know, there was some Marvel comic booky type action towards the end, and then the end, you know, which really kind of it's out there, you know. And then at the end is tied up a little too crisply. I wanted there to be some loose ends that we could follow into the next book, but there really wasn't. It's almost like, well, this is the end of the series, folks. 2 books. See you later. But no, we do know that the series continues with, you know, 14 or some odd other books. I think it's great. I loved the Mafia underworld with the werewolves. I loved Harry Dresden's journey through it. I don't give spoilers, so that's about the basics you're gonna get. I just give basic plot points and then I gush about what I like. And I did really like this one. I give this one a solid Full Moon. Book number 2 in the Dresden Files gets a solid 7.5 out of 10, which is pretty close to what I gave the first book. So 7.5 out of 10. I liked it. I think that the covers, by the way, let's just give a shout out to the author who does these covers. They're all consistent. The design team with the publisher, thanks for keeping all the books, giving them a consistent look. Let's hope you continue that. Don't screw it up and do something crazy and stupid. Just keep it like this. This is what we love. Thank you so much, Jim Butcher, for writing a great series. Love it. Love it. Love it. We'll see you at the next Comic-Con. And everybody go out and get Full Moon. Start reading the Dresden Files if you haven't already because they're awesome.